There are periods in history when humanity looks at itself again and realizes how deeply asleep it has been. The Middle Ages, 1,000 years of silence, a time when fear and belief ruled over the mind. Human beings forgot their own light while living in the shadow of God. But no darkness lasts forever. One morning, in the streets of Florence, a new idea began to rise. An idea that reminded humanity of itself. An idea that declared beauty, genius, and curiosity sacred once again. They called it the Renaissance, rebirth. The Renaissance was not just an artistic movement. It was a mental revolution. For the first time, humanity realized that it was the architect of its own destiny. At that time, Europe was just emerging from darkness. Wars, plagues, fear, and ignorance covered the continent. But beneath that destruction, something was brewing. Merchants were getting richer. City-states were growing. Florence, Venice, Milan. These cities traded not only money, but ideas. And one day, a powerful family called the Medici began to measure wealth not in gold, but in art. They supported young painters, philosophers, astronomers, because they understood that true wealth lived in thought. At that moment, history changed direction. A painter began to paint a new kind of human. A sculptor tried to free an angel hidden in marble. A scientist turned a telescope toward the sky and saw infinity. And humanity rediscovered its center. Leonardo da Vinci was not only an artist. He was the first true visionary of humankind. With one hand, he painted the mysterious smile of the Mona Lisa, and with the other, he sketched the first idea for a helicopter. A brush in one hand, engineering in the other. Da Vinci proved that the human mind has no limits. When Michelangelo looked at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, he did not merely see an old white-bearded god. He saw a hand reaching, the human hand, stretching toward the divine. That hand was the symbol of human potential. And when Galileo pointed his telescope to the sky, he corrected a 1,000-year-old illusion. The Earth was not the center of the universe, but our search for meaning, that was a different kind of center, a sun built inside the human mind. These were dangerous ideas, because the Renaissance did not only challenge artistic boundaries, it challenged power. For centuries, the Church had been the voice of truth. But now, the artist's brush, the thinker's words, the scientist's lens began to speak louder. The Renaissance was a manifesto of freedom. It returned to humans their right to think, to question, to create. And then came the printing press. With the turn of a crank, humanity broke its chains. A single page became a spark, and Europe caught fire. An age ended, and a new one began. An age of ideas. But even then, the Renaissance was not the end of the story. Awakening is not a historical event. It is a universal law, because humanity forgets again and again, and every age waits for its own Renaissance. After the Renaissance, civilization moved rapidly into new discoveries. Explorers crossed oceans. New continents were found. And as the world grew larger, so did the human self. But perhaps the greatest discovery was not new lands, but the human mind itself. We realized that identity does not come from nature or God alone, but from consciousness. This was the greatest revolution of all. Humanity believed in its own power. Then centuries passed. The light of the Renaissance never died, but its shadows changed. The Industrial Revolution came. Technology was born. Information multiplied. Yet, somewhere along the way, humanity drifted away from itself again. We produced more, but felt less. We created more, but lost meaning. And now, in the modern world, we face the same question. What will our Renaissance be? Perhaps today's Renaissance does not happen in art galleries, but on computer screens. Hands once holding brushes now write code. Scientists who once mapped the stars with telescopes now map the universe digitally. But the essence remains the same: to create, to question, to push beyond the limits. Perhaps today's Leonardo is an AI engineer. Perhaps today's Galileo is a data scientist revealing the universe through numbers. And perhaps today's Michelangelo is a digital artist painting emotion on a glowing canvas. Every era has its own Renaissance. Every awakening begins in silence. Maybe within our own silence, we too are waiting to awaken. The Renaissance proved one thing: even in the darkest moment, humanity can be reborn. One idea, one line, one word can be the spark. We are connected through technology, yet disconnected inside. This is why we need the spirit of the Renaissance more than ever. The Renaissance was both the past and the future. It answered a single question: how does a civilization rise again? And perhaps the answer lies within us. Just as Adam reached out his hand, we too reach toward something: knowledge, art, truth, and one another. It was the resurrection of a world that whispered to humanity, "You are more." And today that voice echoes again, quieter, deeper, but still calling. Maybe our Renaissance will not be built by machines, but by meaning. Maybe to be reborn means to feel again, to become human again. Throughout history, awakenings usually began with one person: an artist, a thinker, a scientist, or simply an idea. That idea changed ages, and that idea still walks among us today. The Renaissance ended, But its light still burns. In every work of art, in every scientific discovery, in every human journey, the traces of that light remain. We are still the children of that awakening. And, maybe, now it is our turn. This was the awakening point. And like all beginnings, this too is only the start.